Hello, welcome to Certifiably Ingame. Rick here.
And Tyr. We just wanted to say thank you for getting us over 10,000 subs, and as a special, we put together Cultural Index on our most requested species.
It means a lot to see the channel grow, so again, thanks for journeying with us to make it happen. So without further ado, let's move on to today's index. Oh, and the Zindi will be next up. But first...
The Klingons are often seen as Starfleet's adversaries, but often they have appeared as allies. The Federation-Klingon relationship is probably one of Star Trek's most complicated, with long stretches of uneasy peace, punctuated by numerous incidents of war, and occasionally stalwart alliances. For the homeworld, Kronos, the Klingon people are adaptable and hardy. They reach maturity fast, being adolescent by 8, and have multiple backup organs.
Despite the fact that they weren't always a warrior culture, they've always placed a great pride on their ability to fight. First each other, then alien invaders, alien subjects, and the Federation. Of all Star Trek races, the Klingons have the most fleshed out history and backstory, with thus easily able to build a cohesive timeline of their civilization, from pre-warp to the end of the Dominion War.
We can look into this in a later video if there's interest, but the Culture Index aims to explore, well, their culture, so let's get started.
The society of Klingons is based around houses, specifically the 24 Great Houses. The House of Duras, House of Kor, the House of Martok, Mo, among them. Each house consists of the family for which the house is named, as well as various allied families that have pledged allegiance, as well as adopted members. Some of these adopted members could include the honoured rank of Gintuk. The head of the house was traditionally occupied by the eldest male, however, in a theme we will see repeated, tradition did not always take precedence, with several houses being led by women.
Each house also had numerous positions of political influence and varying roles. One such position unique to the Great Houses was that of Councillor. The Councillor of the House sat alongside their fellows on the Klingon High Council, which in turn was led by the Chancellor, who had the final say in all matters Klingon. However, they do have an Emperor, but that position is, as of 2370, mostly ceremonial.
This relatively simple structure has served the Klingon people for over 1,000 years, with the High Council having to represent the Klingon values. It's just as well the Klingons have a relatively simple government, as they themselves are ruled by a bigger notion and one that's much harder to define. Honour.
To a Klingon, male or female, honour is everything, but the notions behind Klingon honour can be complex and at times contradictory. What does it mean to bring honour to your house? Does victory in battle always mean you have gained honour? It's not a commodity, so how does it directly affect a Klingon's house standing?
Bringing glory and respect to yourself speaks well of you and your house, and your companions. Likewise, their achievements bolster your own. These actions forge a reputation which the house carries aloft, giving weight to their decisions and decrees when brought before the High Council. Conversely, dishonour carries with it a stigma that can severely diminish a house's influence.
As to what earns a house greater respect, well, living by Klingon customs and traditions is the simplest way to put it. However, there are a myriad of rites, rituals, and a strong code of conduct that define this society. Often simply acting in a manner one deems honourable isn't enough to fit this complex codex, and can often lead outsiders into a well of trouble.
One rite undergone by most Klingons is the rite of ascension. This is taken before the age of 13 and is effectively a pledge to uphold the Klingon values and study to become a great warrior. The notion of becoming a warrior, seeking glory through combat, is such a powerful force in their culture that those who do not undergo the ritual are permanently banned from becoming a warrior. This likely isolates them from certain lines of work and would definitely make them appear weak to other houses, who could, using their influence, press the weaker houses into service or even destroy it.
Because the warrior culture is always present and has become synonymous with honour, every Klingon trains to fight, from lawyer to cook, steward to councillor, and this is just as well.
At any time, a Klingon can challenge another, in any position, to combat. Although a challenge can be refused, to do so marks the individual as a coward and a loss of honour, therefore standing. So what stops a complete nobody from challenging the High Council to combat? Well, the guards, for one thing. But let us presume this hypothetical duel is invoked by the right of vengeance, which is able to be invoked by even a dishonoured Klingon. Firstly, a Klingon must have a suitable reason to challenge, in this case revenge, but it could also include a perceived dishonour or even a trial by combat. Secondly, certain positions offered a Klingon the ability to choose a stand-in to replace them in combat. A Chadich was a ceremonial position given to an ally who would accept any combat issued to a dishonoured Klingon who was in the midst of a political challenge. This was obviously to preserve the life of those involved in the political feud, likely a law to prevent you simply declaring a duel to avoid prolonged hearings. But now we're delving deep into Klingon lore.
For this reason, the head of the house is expected to be the greatest warrior among them. Apart from the primal notion that the leader has to be the strongest among them, the practical reason was that they were most likely to be targets of duels and assassinations. As a side note, assassins themselves were not considered dishonourable, but must make themselves known to the target and use a melee weapon.
Speaking of dishonour, if an individual is considered irredeemable, they can be disbarred from Klingon society. If their house is considered tainted beyond hope, it too can be dissolved and all its assets open to be seized by the other houses.
Blood is more important in Klingon culture than for simply tracing the lineage. In fact, shedding blood alongside a Klingon in combat often earns you respect. Those wounded in battle wear their scars as pride, and voluntarily shedding blood while swearing a vow constitutes a blood oath. On its own, an unbreakable vow, and an act often incorporated into many other rituals.
That hurts! It's supposed to hurt.
One fact that demonstrates the Klingons' xenophobic tendencies is that they often overlay their culture onto other races, judging others by their culture's standards and notions of honour, often finding them wanting and therefore unworthy to be addressed as equals. This attitude carries over into warfare, with the Klingons having no qualms about using cloaking technology to hide their vessels, despite the seemingly unfair and dishonourable handicap of fighting an invisible opponent.
One way to win a Klingon's respect is to fight back when challenged. However, this too can have a whole host of problems, not the least which is a possible death. Death to a Klingon warrior is nothing to be feared, for so long as the death is honourable, then the spirit can leave to venture to Stuvakor. This Valhalla-like afterlife is a land of endless jubilation and conflict, which some may argue is the same thing for a Klingon.
The death howl was performed by comrades to warn the afterlife that a warrior was coming. This could then be followed by the Akva, a watching over of the body to ensure that the spirit had left. However, if the death was dishonourable, then the barge of the dead awaited to carry the Klingons to Grethor, Hell. Though all was not lost for a Grethor-bound Klingon, there are tales in mythology of Kahless the Unforgettable travelling into Hell, braving the demonic Feklar to retrieve his brother's soul. For those who die dishonourably without messianic siblings, an act of valour can be performed in their name, showing the impact they had on the living and the inspiration they provided.
But it must be said, for as much as the Klingons know how to die, they know how to live, and party. Copious amounts of alcohol, feasting, song, headbutts and laughter. For as many excuses as Klingon can find to fight, he can find to get drunk. For example, the initiation ceremony for the Order of the Bat Leth, or Sword, involved a 24-hour feast beforehand that served as a trial of stamina as much as it did celebration. The most celebrated Klingon in history, however, was that of Kahless the Unforgettable. We could do a whole video on his life alone. Suffice to say that this mythical status was achieved from many great feats, historical, mythical and parabolic. The Star of Kahless was the highest medal that can be given. The Order of Kahless is the most respected, and those of his lineage are required to be exemplars of Klingon valour. Today, the closest a Klingon can achieve to this status is to be named Dahar Master, a position where your deeds will be immortalised and forever retold.
In fact, these stories are a linchpin for Klingon art. They revel in telling tales of heroism, embellishing their deeds for dramatic effect and exaggerating events to entertain. As remarked on, it's important to understand and retell these stories, even if they're well known, as they provide examples of how Klingons should be seen to behave, or warnings to the dishonoured. This storytelling is likely a factor in the spread of the Klingon warrior ethos, with tales often being recited to the young.
Sculpture, Tapestry, writing, opera and poetry are all centred around celebrating these great deeds. Other artwork features heraldry and iconography of the houses. This iconography was often found adorning weaponry and armour, which, unsurprisingly, was abundant.
Often, furs and leathers adorned their outfits, which provided some variety beyond the uniforms of the Klingon Defence Force. No doubt the furs are real, as Klingons showed repeated disdain for things that they deemed false. They detest synthahol, and use terms like "no true Klingon would" or "you call yourself a Klingon" when insulting somebody.
Their spiritual reverence and belief in the afterlife also demonstrates the Klingon belief in their superiority. They celebrate their own deeds and achievements. No deity rules above them. In fact, mythology states that they slew their gods after the gods made the first 2 Klingons.
Ha! They won't be doing that again.
Hey, does that mean that the Klingon gods are in Grathor?
Traditional Klingon marriage was founded on the story of Kalis and Kara's meeting. They fought against the soldiers of Molor, a tyrant ruler of Kronos. After the battle, they ravaged each other, then were attacked by Molor's reinforcements on their wedding day. To this day, at the conclusion of a Klingon wedding, the bride and groom are attacked by their friends to recreate this.
In essence, the Klingon people have evolved an incredibly simple lifestyle that at the same time is needlessly complex. They claim superiority over other species and routinely demonstrate this through conflict. Though their scientific skills and technological development are serviceable, they are behind that of the other races. Although innovators and scientists exist, much of their technology is acquired through force. Even their warp technology was rumoured to have been stolen from the Herc, a species which attempted to conquer a pre-warp Klingon race. Yeah, they're gone now.
A Klingon wears his or her emotions on their sleeve. When they're happy, you'll hear it. Sad, you'll see it. Angry, you'll fear it. Through celebration of glory and honour, they personify a warrior creed, although rarely do they extend this honour to outsiders. To a Klingon, the highest compliment they can give to an outsider is to say that you are a Klingon at heart, and they truly believe this. There's so much more than what we have time for in one cultural index. So let us know what aspects of Klingon society you want us to look into next. We're probably going to do a video on Kalis himself and his lore, but there is just so much more, like a list of specific rites, their history, technology, or even why they have ridges.
We'd like to thank you again for the 10,000 subs, and if you're not subscribed, maybe check out our channel, see if it would appeal. We do more than just Trek.
And the next index will be on the Xindi, pending the results from the last index, which was on Destiny's The Fallen. So, I've been Rick. Thanks again.
And from Tyr, as usual, goodbye.